Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Leonidas, for inviting me to talk on this issue. It gives me an odd feeling to project my slides now between you and the good Greek food waiting behind, but I think it won't help if we move up the screen already during my talk. So my talk is about competition and competition safeguards in the mobile industry. We haven't heard much about competition in mobile because I think most people take it for granted that the market is competitive, in particular if it is compared to fixed markets. Now, nevertheless, I think competition in mobile deserves some thoughts. A competitive market structure, economists and regulators usually equate to 4 network operators. The competition safeguards are also required for mobile services in auctions for the very fact that large players may simply be able to outbid smaller rivals and newcomers. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One is, of course, the incumbents. The large incumbents are usually the ones which have the higher coverage, more scale, and they benefit from an early 900 megahertz assignment. Some of us may also expect that auctions may be prone to raising rivals' cost strategies from the side of the incumbents. So the question is really how to secure competition, and that mainly focuses on what you can call the fourth player. There's the third man in that famous movie by Orson Welles. There are other movies, the fourth kind, there's a fifth dimension, and there is also the fourth player, which in some countries actually, as in Greece, may be the third player, who's at stake. We had the fourth player in a couple of recent auctions, and here you see sort of a selection of operators that were considered as possibly at stake, possibly in a weak position, possibly requiring some sort of support. And the last two auctions that were quite instructive about this were the Dutch 2012 auction, where Tele2 applied for a spectrum as well as a joint venture of Ziggo and UPC, 2 cable companies. Also in the UK in the 2013 auction, we had a total of 4 players that were bidding for a license in addition to the 3 incumbent players. Now, competition safeguards are required, I think, in order to secure a fourth player in many instances and in many countries. Spectrum caps have that the function of limiting the amount of spectrum which an operator can hold. So by implication, you can translate spectrum caps into the amounts that of additional spectrum that an operator can bid for in an auction. There are various examples of spectrum caps around, and countries differ by their respective policies. So in Greece, in the 2011 auction, we had a spectrum cap of twice 15 megahertz for 900 megahertz spectrum. In other recent auctions, we had spectrum caps for the spectrum below 1 gigahertz, so the 800 and 900, because this is the spectrum that is more scarce and that is of particular value for outdoor coverage across the country and also for indoor coverage. And we have total spectrum caps. Now, the function of spectrum caps is to avoid the excessive concentration of spectrum in the hands of individual bidders and individual operators, but obviously they cannot constrain enough to secure a fourth player. So we may need to do something in addition very tight spectrum caps would have the disadvantage that there would probably not much scope left for bidding and for a flexible allocation of spectrum among bidders. So reserved spectrum is a more direct way to secure a fourth player in an auction. And reserved spectrum means that there is some additional spectrum that a fourth player may need that is set aside in the auction, and the intention is to allow for this fourth player to remain if he's already in the market, or if he's a newcomer, to become a credible player. The reserved spectrum goes a long way in securing a fourth player. However, there may be countries where even setting aside spectrum will not provide the necessary incentive at the reserve price to create a positive business case for a fourth player. So it's an instrument, but it's by no way guaranteed that you will actually in all three player markets be able to incentivize another player to participate in the auction and to possibly benefit from a set-aside spectrum. Now, having said this, there are also markets where spectrum reservations are not really necessary, and the German market is an example for that. We had no reserved spectrum in that market. By the way, spectrum reservations can be defined in different ways, and they have their pros and cons. You see here a couple of examples. We had originally in the UK for this 2013 auction spectrum floors defined for all bidders, spectrum floors for 2G spectrum in the 800 and 2.6 gigahertz area. Finally, Ofcom defined minimum spectrum portfolios for the small players, so that were all players except the three large incumbents, and there were four of them that benefited from this sort of minimum spectrum portfolios. Minimum spectrum portfolios ensure that certain winning bid combinations are excluded, namely those that do not provide the spectrum for a fourth or possibly a fifth newcomer or recent new entrant. And then we had, in the Dutch auction, we had reserved spectrum for the newcomers. So there was a set aside of 800 and 900 spectrum with a cap of 10 megahertz paired on one individual newcomer. So there are various instruments that regulators can make use of when designing spectrum auctions. I'm not here to tell you that there is one size fits all. It very much depends on the country-specific circumstances. As I said, the German 2010 auction did not need reserved spectrum for the number 4 player or even a potential fifth one. They used simply a spectrum cap. The UK auction in 2013 used both. The Dutch spectrum auction used only reserved spectrum. There are many factors that have to be taken into account. Obviously, regulators are guided and continue to be guided even in player markets to have a lookout for a fourth player. Four operators really is sort of the target where regulators will think that competition can be effective. With 3 players, you may have effective competition, but not necessarily so. Now, there is another issue that I would like to deal with in addition. It's also about reserved spectrum, but it's actually not reserved spectrum for newcomers and recent new entrants. It's about reserved spectrum to incumbent players. And you may ask, why is that? Well, 900 and 1800 licenses, in particular 900 licenses, They are running out, the early ones that have been assigned. Now, nobody wants that because of a loss of spectrum, there will be disruption of services on the side of the incumbent players. However, I think that long-term renewals, extensions of these licenses, or sometimes this is called grandfathering, bear a high risk of being discriminatory. Now, Ofcom, who now has extended licenses indefinitely, tries to justify this with economic spectrum pricing, so that the increased value that may be attached to these renewals, extensions are sort of captured by economic spectrum pricing. I think this is a very difficult thing to make really free of discrimination, and I think there's another way to deal with that, and that's a way that was used by the Greek regulator in 2011 when the 900 and new 1800 spectrum was auctioned. And that auction provided for a certain amount of 900 spectrum to be reserved, so that the continuity of GSM services for some time to come was actually guaranteed. Now the question is, how much spectrum do you reserve? The Greek regulator took 7.5 megahertz of 900 spectrum paired. There may be other ideas about that, but that is a way to ensure the non-discriminatory sort of de facto extension of spectrum. Now, in order to make it really non-discriminatory, there's obviously this question: if you have to provide the same reservation for new entrants. The EETT in that instance says, well, we potentially have to do that. It was more a hypothetical question in Greece since there was no fourth interested bidder. Having said this, again, this is country specific. The Dutch auction 2012 which was also about reassigning 900 and 1800 expiring spectrum. The Dutch auction did without grandfathering and without reserved spectrum, and all the incumbent players were able to repurchase the spectrum required in this area. So my last slide, the fourth player, is it a really realistic perspective? First of all, the spectrum cap alone may already be enough. We may not need a reserve spectrum in a particular country. But there are definitely countries where reserved spectrum is helpful to secure a fourth player in the market, and a fourth player can be, in terms of competition, make the very decisive difference. In smaller markets, I'm more skeptical. It would remain to be seen whether Greece actually would be a case for a fourth player or not. For the time being, it does not look like. Thank you very much.